it was so plug and play for me. Again, I'm really system, oriented, that I feel like I can go in and I could do any niche at this point. I could add any level, any layer, any niche if I wanted to, which is such a comfort because now I'm not worried.
How are you?
I am great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Very well. So thank you very much for coming on today's session, Jen. So I think just taking it back to the start, just as a main introduction for those listeners, do you want to just explain in a little bit about where you're based, your background, what your agency does, and your niche?
Sure. So I am in Northern California. And I opened my firm in 2021, June of 2021. So officially this summer was 2 years. We initially started as a technology recruiting firm, and I've been a technology recruiter for, close to 20 plus years. Won't talk about how long for reals because we don't want to give age away, but have been in the recruiting industry for a very long time, technology recruiting for about 20 years. And and I found you guys, I believe, in February of this year. Have a team of about 7.
So for those of them learning about your experience, I want to take things back to the start really, Jennifer, and how you started the agency. So before your recruitment world, did you priorly work in a recruitment agency? What was your background before you started your own business?
I sold Kirby vacuums door to door for 7 years. And so hardcore sales, School of Hard Knocks type sales. But part of my selling Kirby vacuums, I actually ended up owning a distributorship when I was in my early 20s. And part of that was recruiting for salespeople to knock on doors, which I think is the hardest recruiting you could ever possibly do. Trying to talk, some 25-year-old, 20-year-old kid into, knocking on doors full time and talking to strangers. So that's how my recruiting started. Eventually decided I didn't want to sell vacuums anymore. So, but I loved recruiting. So I was hired into an agency as just a junior recruiter and account manager. So I did some junior recruiting, almost 360 desk. So I did sales, recruiting, and from there it kind of, just snowballed into 20 years of recruiting. And I started with one agency, then I was hired by another agency. After I'd been with that first one for many years, I was hired in as a VP of sales and recruitment and sales for another smaller boutique firm. And that was all technical recruiting. And that's really where I jumped into the technical pool. Did that for many, many years. And then in 2021, decided to open my own firm.
Awesome. And what was the big turning point for you to actually going in and starting your own business?
Well, the company that I was with, he was an amazing owner. We're still dear friends to this day, but there was no equity opportunity for me within that firm. And he would go on 3, 4, 5-week vacations, which is exactly how I want to live. So he basically was living the life that I wanted to live, and I was running his firm for him. So I was like, I think it's about time for some changes to happen. And he was getting close to, deciding to do some other things. So the timing was just kismet, and it was time for me to go. And he was actually looking at transitioning his firm to another state. So out of California, didn't want that California overhead. And so the timing was just amazing. And we parted ways, really great friends. And I went into my own firm.
Brilliant. So walk us through the first few days then, because it must have been quite daunting when you're working for someone else and all of a sudden you've got all of these thoughts going on in your head. I remember when I started my first time in the agency, it was very overwhelming in terms of what do I do now? How do I get some clients? Where the process is.
Yeah. I will never forget. So, starting in April of 2021, I started working on getting my business license, and, he and I had started having these conversations. So it was not a shock that I, decided to move. And kind of in the interim between moving, I was doing some consulting, a little bit of consulting with some local boutique firms, helping doing some recruiter coaching with some of the boutique firms in the area. So I had some time to kind of build out my business plan, but I will never forget, man, June 1st, 2021, I sat at my desk and I was like, okay, now what? What do I do? So it was literally all right, we're going to start with LinkedIn. We're going to see who on LinkedIn wants to be my friend. And so I literally reached out to my personal network. And I know this is going to sound totally crazy, but when you're selling vacuums, that's how you start. Like you beg your mom and dad to buy a vacuum from you. So I was like, we're going to reach way back into the toolbox. And I literally reached out to all my first connections on LinkedIn. And I was like, hey, I've started my own firm. You guys know me. I've recruited for you. Let's talk. And that was really like the first, I didn't get a search for probably June, July. I didn't get my first search until probably mid-July. So it was a good 45 or 50 days of literally just sending LinkedIn messages like manually because I didn't have a system. I was living out of Google. So, Google and spreadsheets, and was trying to figure out what system I wanted. And so everything was just, super, super, super manual. And got that first search, and then got that second search, and then got that third search, and had a little bit of cash in the bank. And, so my first year, so 2021, I actually ended up starting June 1st, I actually ended up doing 250,000 in revenue. So I was I was blown away. And, considering that I was making 150 prior, 150, 175. So to do that in such a short period of time, but I didn't know how to go any further. Right. So I was like, okay, cool. Now I've got some revenue happening, and I've got, one person working for me, but yeah, sitting at my desk, I will never forget just like sitting at my desk that first day going, all right, it's 8:00. I have my coffee. I did my meditation. Now what do I do? It was terrifying.
Yeah, it is. I remember the same for me when it was like almost 10 years ago now. It was like I was sat in Caponero, I think. I was like, where do I go from here? What market am I going to do? How do I map out my niche? Okay, now we need to ring some clients. Like, there's just a lot. So that was awesome. So the first year you did like 250K in revenue. What was the split between different clients? So did you have like one big great client, or did you have a mixture?
Yeah, so I had I had one great client that I've worked with for probably 12 years. And because my old firm was, transitioning and making some changes, they transitioned over to me, which honest to God, I was so grateful for. But even without them, I still would have done probably 120, 130 without them. So that was that was really good for me to see that, like, okay, just that, like, going out there and saying hi to my friends on LinkedIn really helped. But yeah, it was a split of, I would say it was a 60-40 of just one big client. And then the rest of it was just little things here and there that kind of came through.
And what was your working environment? Like, how many hours per week on average when you first started?
Oh, you're a business owner. So what is it? Like, how many hours can you work and also sleep? I would say probably 80. It was crazy. I was working, like 80. I don't even know. James, you do the math. I'm terrible at it. I have a bookkeeper and an accountant and a CFO now, so I can't do math. Like, I was working 12 to 15 hours a day. Wow. So 5 to 6 days a week. I was trying to take Sundays, but and some of that time was sitting in like loop line. That's what we call it here. When you're waiting to pick up your kid from school, like I literally had a hotspot and I would sit in loop the line to pick up my kid with my laptop open, like working on a hotspot while I'm waiting for the school to open. Cause it was insane. Yeah.
So you managed to do this and obviously still raise your kids as well. Mm-hmm. So what was it like? Stressful?
Yeah, it sucked. It was awful. I'll be really honest with you. And, this is just me being super vulnerable and transparent. I had more panic attacks in 2021 and into 2022 than I've ever had in my life. So it was tough. It was hard. But you can see a light, right? Like you can see the money's coming in, the clients are starting to be responsive, like a little bit here and there, you can see a light, but it's still like a paycheck to paycheck. That's how I feel. Even now, like with as amazing as it is, I'm always going to be like a little financially screwy. I feel like I'm a little when it comes to worrying about the money in the bank, but it's nothing like it was. Now it's just my own personality that I have to, work through. But at that point in time, it was really, really stressful because it's a month-to-month thing. You're like, okay, I have a search, but I also have to do business development. How the hell am I going to fill this search and do business development and get my kid to school? And my husband's working out of town for the next 2 weeks. Like, how do I manage it all? So it was tough.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where most people fail, right? Is the first year is very tough because you have a lot of thoughts going on in your mind, overwhelm. you live and breathe your business. Yeah. So like gone are like working for an employer, and you can forget about it on the weekend. You've got all sorts to think about, and you're doing everything. So like that's why I respect entrepreneurs that actually go alone and manage to set up the business, because it's not easy, and that's why like it's important to have peers and accountability partners or community and mentors. All these things like just help you along the way to ease you into, look, you're on the right track, maybe try this instead of that, and it sort of calms your mind, as it were, and because there's so much uncertainty in your mind all of the time, and trying to control that mindset side of the uncertainty is tough. And like I remember when I started mine, I had the same experience. I think I've shared that on a few podcasts, but meditation helped for sure. And then once you start making more money, it does help because it gives you that buffer.
I was lonely. That was the thing. That was a part too, because I wasn't part of a part of a community, and I didn't have anybody working for me. So really, and I'm a brainstormer. I love to, as you well know, I love to interact. I love to get feedback. I love to chat. I love to talk with, different people and get really cool ideas. And so it was hard. I didn't realize how lonely it would be without a community. That was a big eye opener for me, 2021 and 2022.
Cool. So let's say like after the first year, what happened in the second year then, Jennifer? Like what were the key changes from year 1 to year 2, and what were like the main challenges or bottlenecks that you were sort of facing before you started working with us?
So 2022, I did 700,000. So I drastically jumped from 250 to 700. Granted, if I'd been in business all of 2021, I probably would have done 500. So, I mean, it was the right, I'm moving in the right direction. But 700,000 might seem like a ton to some people, that are listening, and it may seem like nothing to other people. But for me, it was just proof that, okay, this is working and this is real. I had hired, my first hire was a VA. And she was a game changer for me. I'd never experienced anything like that before. And she literally would send me messages in the middle of the day, like, don't forget that you've got 15 minutes till you need to go get your daughter. Like, oh my God, like that was crazy game changer. Like, oh, okay, cool. I actually have somebody that can, like, my brain doesn't have to stay so clogged up. And I think that just continuing to work that one-to-one. So I know one-to-one sales. That's all I've ever known is one-to-one. So knocking on doors, going into B2B, going into businesses, dropping off the little presents and hoping that they call you back. Just, that's all I've ever done. So that's what I did on LinkedIn. So, but now I had a virtual assistant that did it for me. So she started doing the one-to-one outreach and, on my behalf, which changed things. And that's really where I think that that I was able to really propel my revenue was, I was able to hire a sourcer, somebody to help me look for, build me lists to look for candidates. And then I have a VA that's, out there doing kind of the one-to-one outreach for me. So now I can really focus on closing the clients and, filling the positions with new candidates. So that's what got me, I think, to that 700. And at the end of 2022, I hired my first recruiter, which was really cool. So I think I did probably 580 to 600 on my own. And then I added a recruiter, at the last quarter, and she did about 100,000 with my support and help. But even at that point, I felt like, and this is what led me to Agency Blueprint. So first and foremost, I'm very system focused and organized. So systems make sense to me. So the Agency Blueprint was literally like a no-brainer. I think I watched one video, I talked to one of your people, and I was like, oh yeah, this is totally like the right thing for me, because it really aligns with how I do business anyway. And one of the things that I realized in 2022, even though I did an amazing amount of revenue, I was still so stressed out. I was still having panic attacks. I was still spinning. I felt like, I had like 50 pieces of paper on my desk trying to remind me of what I needed to do next and where, and I had sticky notes everywhere. And I just couldn't, even with a virtual assistant, I just never felt like it was dialed. I was constantly changing things and constantly trying new things, which is what I think what you're supposed to do as a business owner. But I didn't know how to make things stick, and I didn't know how to I didn't know how to see them through from like a cradle to grave perspective. And then January hit in 2023, and then Silicon Valley Bank shut down, and then technology went like this, because I'm right outside of San Francisco, and we had a tech recruiting crash that was equivalent to 2008, in my opinion, because you had so many layoffs from the FANG companies, right? The big Facebook, Amazon, Google, Netflix, all those big Silicon Valley companies just laid off so many people. And all of a sudden, January 2023, I didn't bill one penny. What? Like, are you kidding me? Nothing. I couldn't even wrap my head around that, because I don't think I've ever done that in my entire career, except for when I was super new. So that was horrible. It was the most horrible feeling. And I was still spinning, and I was working 10 hours a day still. And I was, working from my car, trying to pick my kid up from school. And I had a tiny team, good systems, but not anything but I was still doing one-to-one outreach. So it was still so heavy. It was such a lot of work. And so February, that's when I found Agency Blueprint. And it literally was like a breath of fresh air for me.
Yeah. You know what's really interesting about your mindset there, Jennifer, was you done really well, and you did amazing to get to 700K with really no help. You just figured it out and got along the path. And then for you to be in a market where it just crashed all of a sudden overnight and you lost all of the jobs, normally most people are in scarcity mode where they don't reach out for help. They think, I need to save money I can't spend to invest in myself to figure out the right path. Whereas you went against the tide. What changed in your mind to do that? Because most people wouldn't have done that. Most people normally end up thinking, I need to save, I need to just try and figure it out myself, and when it gets good again and I do a few more deals, and all of a sudden I'll invest in myself. What made that change for you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like some of it's just instinctual. You just know that you have to do something different. Again, growing up in the door-to-door sales place, I mean, I've seen Brian Tracy in person. I've seen Zig Ziglar in person. I've seen these big, these motivational old school people. So I understand the importance of investing in oneself to be able to do better. You have to spend money to make money. And I know that's the old cliche, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. And that's it. And I wasn't ever going back to working for somebody else ever again in my entire life. That is a hard no for me. That is literally a hard stop. If I get to the point where God strikes down and my recruiting firm is gone and I have to work for somebody else, I will literally travel the world and live in hostels. I'm not going to ever work for anybody else ever again. So, end of January, I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then I realized that I'm going to have to switch niches. And that was a huge, scary thing, was I'm not going to be able to stay in technology. I've got to diversify my recruitment portfolio. And I have no idea how to quickly pivot and switch niches to be able to get new business to come in and still be a, employer of choice and a recruiting firm of choice, and still stay, true to who we are and true to who Parker Beth is. But, that's what ended up leading me to you, because I was like, I've got to spend the money. I have to switch niches. I don't know how to do this on my own. And I think that, I reached out to you originally. I'm and you would ask me, what's your biggest challenge? What is it that and I said, I made 700. I want to do 1 million. I don't know how to close that gap, and I have to switch niches. I'm not going to give up. So what do we do next?
So that's interesting. So now then you come into Agency Blueprint Pro. What were the first things that you changed, and what were the first aha moments for you, Jennifer? Jennifer.
Oh my God, Loom videos. What? Making videos and actually putting my face in front of people. So that was the biggest change for me out of the gate. That literally changed my mindset. It changed my business. So that was the biggest thing, was learning how to, do the omnipresence, creating that, what is it that you call it? The flywheel effect. I've always been taught, be careful when you reach out to somebody. Don't overdo it. If you're going to go visit them in person, don't oversend them emails. Don't, you know what I mean? And your program was so different. Send them an email, send them a, LinkedIn connection request, send them a video. Don't stop. Let them know that you're here and you're, in post. And get that stuff out there. And I'll be honest, I always thought like post every day was so cliche. But when you have a network that's seeing your post, that's a totally different thing. And I didn't realize the difference in that. So the first thing was just building out my automation for Dripify, LinkedIn, my LinkedIn automation, building out my outreach, my many to one outreach, and then starting to communicate differently to clients, to prospects. I think that was the biggest thing, is I started communicating differently and they ate it up. Oh, and I had to build out new niches. So that was reaching out to researchers and, figuring out, all right, what do I want to do? What am I passionate about? I think that was what was really cool too, is that I got to like figure out what I really love. I'll be honest, and, I'm just going to whisper this so only you can hear it. I don't like technology recruiting. It's not my favorite thing. I'm very good at it, but it's not my favorite thing. There's other stuff that I'm more passionate about. And I think that's what's so cool about being an entrepreneur, is that you get to follow what you're passionate about. But I think what's so cool about what I learned so quickly is that I can literally scale towards my passion, like on a dime. So my company turned around on a dime, like 45 days. It was a different company.
It's awesome. So like you came in, you used the niche map builder. So we mapped on a new niche. You went into the market with a different client outreach strategy, and then pretty much up and running within 45 days in a new niche and getting clients. Yeah.
Yeah, I barely billed January, February, and we're on track for 900 this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
within a totally new niche, brand new company.
Yeah, like it's crazy. What is the niche again?
So I jumped into two, because I've got two things that I kind of love. So I jumped into accounting and finance. However, I jumped into accounting and finance within the construction space, because it's just such a big boom right now in California, especially commercial construction. So we're doing project managers for construction and then accounting and finance positions. Obviously, I'll still do IT if somebody has an IT department and they need help. So that never went away. And I think that was what was cool too, is that I was able to parallel my company, right? Like I was able to keep my technology recruiting firm and do it the way that I've always done it. But at the same time, because the systems were in place, I was also able to add two new niches, construction PMs and accounting and finance. I was able to add them in such a hot second that now I literally have three niches that are rocking and rolling. I have almost 500,000 in open fees, open positions right now that my team's working. I would say 50% of them are retainers, and they're literally, a third technology, a third accounting and finance, and a third PMs.
Beautiful. So you're spreading risk as well, like especially when recessions come or markets changes, some go up, some go down. So you've got to spread it, like knowing like no matter what happens in the industries, you're always going to have one of them being a hot market.
Yep. And I will say too, that I didn't do it all at once, right? Like created the flywheel, created all that stuff for niche number one, got that set, got that established. Then I went back to my technology side and I took everything that I was doing for accounting and finance and I implemented on the technology side. So now I've got that omnipresence and that outgoing for the technology. And then a month or two later, once these two were working, they were moving, they were working, we've got, candidates coming in, we've got clients coming in, then I was able to add the construction PM piece. So it literally was like, it was so plug and play for me. Again, I'm really system, oriented, that I feel like I can go in and I could do any niche at this point. I could add any level, any layer, any niche if I wanted to, which is such a comfort because now I'm not worried.
So what was the next step from there, Jennifer, in terms of building out the team? So you started the new niche, you got some live jobs on, you built the client acquisition system, which we helped you with. You mentioned some retainers. So I'd imagine you obviously, when you went through the signature sales system, you got the pitch deck, and now you're closing more retained business. Then what was next for you?
So then it was just really getting, making sure I had the right players in place. So I call them a little bit differently than what the agency blueprint calls them, but I now have a team of sourcers outsourced. So those are individuals that actually build me my lists, right? They build me my candidate lists that then my delivery consultants, my recruiters are then calling off of. We have assistants that make these phone calls, reach out, do scheduling, are sending the LinkedIn outreach. So it was really going from a 2-person team. I'm now a 7-person team with half of them outsourced, overseas, and half of them are here in stateside in the US because they were already with me. So I think that was the biggest thing. And what was cool is that each new hire just like fit like a puzzle piece. So it was like, okay, now these guys are really busy. So now we need to hire somebody to support them. So we would outsource somebody to support them. And it just literally it was so organic. I think that's what was really cool about it. So now I've got this full team. We have team meetings, a couple times a week, and you've just got this amazingly diverse team that I didn't anticipate. But it really was about filling in the gap. Okay, now I need this person. Okay, now I need this person. All of it was done by me first. I think that was probably the biggest thing for me, was that every system was implemented by me. All of it was done by me first. So I've touched all of it, which really helped me when I was bringing new people in.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, which I always say with delegating. You need to do the task first, and you need to do the process first for you to get someone in to know that it's done correctly. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome to see the transition. What would you say the key thing is, because you touched on community before, what was the key differentiator for you when you came into the program, Jennifer, being able to work with Ken now as some bigger coach, or the community of like-minded people that gave you the confidence that yes, this works, yes, I can grow, and it spirals from there?
I think that's just it. I mean, I love being able to get on the community page and see other people's successes and see what's happening. And I love that now everybody records, cool things that they do on their, when they're building out a new system, and they actually record it and show the video, and you're like, oh my God, I can totally do that. I actually have have a search now from one of the people in the community that can't fill the search. So they've passed it off to me because it's not in their space. So, just the relationship side of it has been really awesome. And I don't feel alone. And I feel like anytime I want to, I can just jump in and, chat with somebody. I have a standing call once a month with Raina now, because we're both in California and we get along so well. And, we love to touch base and say hi. And, so I have friends because of the community, which I think is huge.
Yeah, it's good. Raina's been in our group for I think 2 years now, and she's awesome. So that's the most important thing, is I think having accountability partners as well. To go from someone that's already been in the program, maybe already skilled to almost 7 figures, and that helps you along the way as well. These are just some of the wins that we've shown inside the program, just to give some of the listeners a sneak peek. Nick posting his win from the agency blueprint program, getting his first placement from all the strategies and the 13K fee. But yeah, I mean, obviously the community is really active. So every day, I mean, you can search for whatever topic it is. So if it's LinkedIn automation or Dripify, for example, you search in there, you've got, 247 different posts around different campaigns. So that's what, just for the listeners to have an idea, Jennifer, in the background of exactly what it is.
That was a huge part of implementing for me. My implementations was being able to access the community and ask questions. The community is really gracious, which I think is huge. And you've built that, that's just a culture that you've been able to do. I love how open everybody is, and everybody's open to sharing. Nobody's worried about, giving away too much information and somebody's going to outsell them or anything like that. Everybody's really open and gracious. And I don't know that I would have been able to implement as quickly as I did some of the systems and the ideas if I hadn't been able to go to the community and just like you did, and look up Dripify and say, okay, who's being successful with this and how do I do this? And then reaching out to them directly. I mean, reaching out to these people and asking if you can ask some questions or, what's going on. So yeah, that was huge.
Awesome. So walk us through now, what's the big grand plan? So what's the end goal with the agency and what you want to achieve?
So, oh my God, I vacillate between like making it big and then walking away or keeping it forever. I don't even know. I think that's what's really cool though, is because now I can just do whatever I want. So I will be honest. I always laugh with my husband and tell him I'm like the laziest hard worker you'll ever meet, because I really don't want to work that hard, but I have to get things going. So I think now it's just continuing to build on what I've learned and just continue to grow the company. I'd like to get my company to 2.5 to 2.5 million. I don't necessarily have any desires to drive it any bigger than that. Not because I don't think I can. I actually think I can do it at this point pretty simply. But I like the size that I am, and I can walk away now. Like I can go on vacation. I can go pick up my daughter and leave my, laptop at home now. I have so much more freedom, and I work so much less. So I don't hit my desk usually until 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm usually away from it by 3 in the afternoon. I go to yoga at lunchtime, at noon. So, I'm always available if my team needs me, but the amount of time that I'm actually working at my business, like recruiting, talking to candidates, talking to clients, is so much less than it was before. I'm able to really work on my business, do this kind of stuff, implement new things, try new stuff, a new niche out. I can do that now. So yeah. I don't have I'm usually very goal oriented, but I will be honest with you, James, because of what I've done over the last 6 months, very smoothly, my goals have shifted, and I have to reevaluate, because my goal was to be done at 10 years. So I'm 2 years in. So I was 8 years later, I'm done. And now I don't know. Cause now I'm but the reason I had that goal was because I was working so hard and I was exhausted. So I was I can only do this for 10 years. But now I'm I could keep my company until I'm 75. It's fine. Just let it do what it does. So
this is what I say. Obviously I've got my agency in the background. I'm here visiting again in Newcastle, but I've never been in that business for over 3 years now. So I see the team, we'll see the deals on the board, the jobs, but the business runs itself in terms of the team does. And then it's I don't have any desire to sell it because it makes great cash flow. And once you've dialed in the systems and got a good core team, it's a great business that can fund other projects. So whether it's a lot of people go into property, different passions as well, but having the freedom, like you said, I think a lot of business owners don't understand. It's I'll try and figure it all out myself. I'm working 50, 60 hours a week, but I'm making good money. It's, well, what if you could make the same money, but only work 20 hours a week in the business? That is worth double the amount of money pretty much, because time's finite. We never get that time back. When you're dead, right. You're dead, you're gone. And people aren't understanding that, I'll just be a solopreneur recruiter and work 50, 60 hours a week for 10 years and then retire. It's why would you want to do that when you could get there a lot quicker with working less if you implement the right systems and the right team and structure in place?
And the odds of making it 10 years, working 50, 60 hours, that's so something's got to give, and it's probably going to be your body. 100%. To try to do that is
you never know, you get burnt out. And over time, the business should get easier it should be less input from you, more profit and more revenue. That's how it should work if you build it correctly.
Yeah, I love that.
So we've got a few questions from the group, Jennifer, if you'd be cool to answer. So Victor asks, how important has it been to be in the same geographical location as your clients? I think is one of the questions. So that's kind of a double-edged sword. I think it's really amazing to be able to see people in person. I think especially after COVID, I think people are craving human interaction. So my in-person meetings are highly lucrative. However, I focus on all of California and also parts of Nevada now, and a little bit into Oregon. So there's plenty of clients that I don't see, and they're just as good. They're just as amazing. I think it just depends on how well you show up in a business development meeting, via Zoom. What does your deck look like? Are you prepared to have an in-person-esque type meeting? Because if you're not, then that's going to be the deal breaker. So you have to be ready and prepared to have really good, solid content and meetings. Very true. And John asks, what was the biggest mistake you made during your first 90 days in business?
I didn't make any mistakes. No, I don't know. Probably just I don't feel like I was as prepared as I should have been. So, my first 90 days, like literally, like I said, I mean, I sat at my desk on that first day, June 1st, and I was like, okay, now what? Like, I literally didn't have anything ready to go. I sat down at my desk and had to figure out what to do. So I think my first mistake was just not having a game plan for client acquisition in place. That was the biggest thing. I know I could have done more in 2021 if I had a client acquisition game plan. That was the biggest part.
Yeah, and that was one of David's questions, was the client acquisition strategy recommended by James different to your previous sales approach?
Yep, because again, I was doing one-to-one. So very similar in the sense that I was doing LinkedIn, I was doing email outreach, that sort of thing, but it was really all one-to-one. Now, granted, my virtual assistant was sending a lot of those out, as I, after I had her, but she was still sending them out one-to-one, literally like one email at a time, changing words. Like she did that for hours every day, and I did it for hours. So that was the biggest thing, was automation and systematizing it so that it still's coming from me. It looks like it was me sending it one-to-one. Everything still looks and feels very personalized, but it's on a grander scale. So it's faster and, it's much, much more efficient.
Yeah, awesome. And Judy asks, what did you learn the most with the Agency Blueprint program?
I think everything I've shared so far. I mean, just the ability to systematize, to be out there, many to one, showing up differently in a virtual environment was huge. Loom videos, building out a niche. I mean, that was I think honestly, James, the strategy on how to build out a niche was probably the single most critical piece of information I have ever gotten in 25 years of recruiting. And I've been to so many recruiting courses. I've done so much. I'm constantly training and learning, and I'm constantly in some sort of education program. That right there, how to build out a niche, was the most critical. Everybody says market mastery, market mastery, market mastery, know your market, know your market. I've never had somebody teach me how to do it. That's
awesome. I appreciate that. So if there's any more questions in the chat, that would be awesome. For anyone that's like on the fence in terms of joining a program, like what would you say to them, Jennifer?
I would say get off the fence. If you do not have the ability to reach out to hundreds of people at one time and effectively and in a manner that is going to actually invite them to engage back with you, then you need to jump into this program. If you are in a niche that's struggling, jump into this program. If you have no niche, if you have no market mastery, jump into this program. If you're lonely, jump into this program.
Yeah, I think the key thing is like people can figure this out themselves, and I say that, but it's going to take you 4 to 5 years of trial and error when you could just learn it a lot quicker with a proven process, and you make a lot of money faster without as much stress. It's sort of like how I package it together. Absolutely. I see that message from Becca, I think. Rebecca. Yeah. Did the outsource overseas resources provide the quality? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just a matter of interviewing. You're a recruiter, right? Just we have to use our recruiter skills and interview outsourced individuals. And I don't feel like outsourcing is any different than hiring stateside for me, because I'm in the US. So it's just a matter of interviewing and making good choices. Yeah, it's a great answer, because all of the biggest corporations in the world, pretty much every S&P 500 company, the people that are on the phone are outsourced companies and candidates that are around the world in call centers. So it is about like interviewing well, onboarding them correctly, having the right systems, processes, follow-up routines, which we'll obviously cover inside the program. So I can honestly say with outsourcing, James, my biggest thing that I learned too from you and the program was the training of and I don't even want to say outsourced, let's just call them remote. Right? I don't even want to say the word outsource, because I feel like outsource can kind of have a negative connotation. The word in-house. Yeah, exactly. They're my team members. So I think that treating them as a team member and as a part of your team and not considering them, quote, outsourced is really critical to making them successful. So true. Judy asks, I have a niche, but it's problems with team members and I work too much in the business and not on the business. Does Agency Blueprint cover this, as I feel hardly any work is done unless I'm in need of the processes? Yeah, that's the whole point of the Agency Blueprint, is to, get yourself out of the business so that you can, create
create an automation and systematize it so that you have people that are supporting you. So, I mean, I don't feel like that's any different than most people that are coming into the thing. It's really, that's what they do. That's what they teach you how to do, is how to get out of the business, how to get your head out of the sand and like kind of see the daylight and not have panic attacks.
Yeah. How is the meditation going then? So what kind of meditation do you do, Jennifer?
So I've got probably 3 different meditation apps that I do, but I'm also a pretty big yoga person. So, you know, I can literally sit for 20 minutes now and just zone out. So that's mostly what I do. I actually really like silence. I feel like we're in such a busy industry, right? So we're talking to people, we're on Zooms all day, we're talking. People are asking us questions, and I love just silence. So I usually meditate in complete silence for 15-20 minutes.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Oh, something else really quick that I want to say that I learned from you. So I have what's called office hours now. That was a game changer. People can't just hit me up all day long. So I have a set, just like a college professor, set office hours. James, that friggin' changed my life. That was huge. I implemented that about a month or 2 ago. I think I posted about it, but yeah, changed my life.
Yeah, like one of the key things I did as well was, I think we mentioned in mastermind was having your second email domain. So like you have your own email that clients or candidates don't know, and your VA can forward you the most relevant emails for the day. So eventually trying to get out your inbox is the most important thing, because I mean, look, we all still do it sometimes. Check emails all of the time. Open an email, mark it as unread, off reply, then don't reply, and then back in it again. And you're thinking about it all the time. Whereas if you have a separate email barrier to protect you from like the main inbox, frees up a lot of your mind and headspace.
I love that.
Awesome. Well, I think that's everything, Jennifer. So firstly, I just want to thank you so much. It's been an honor and pleasure to see your progression over the last few months. I love your energy, love your enthusiasm. As you can probably see on this call, like Jennifer is invested in herself. She's into personal development already. And that is the difference, ladies and gentlemen, to someone that's doing 900K to someone that's just starting out and just doing 100K. Yeah. So invest in yourself, whether it's me or someone else, like having the right mindset, showing up every day. And then you do get rewarded. That's what happens. Like the more input you put in and the more time that you put in, you get rewarded for that. So
absolutely.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you everyone for watching, and I'll catch you soon.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.